This is Local 15 News.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Kim Thurman.
And I'm Greg Peterson. Our big story right now at 10, the Carnival Triumph has arrived at the Alabama Cruise Terminal. We have been tracking its path here to Mobile for the past several days, and a glorious sight tonight as it pulls into the terminal. It shouldn't be too much longer now. The tugs have been pushing against the starboard side of the Triumph to keep it against the cruise terminal. We can see now some of the first people beginning to roll off. This looks like somebody who may be in a wheelchair is being escorted off first. All these passengers having to carry their own luggage out because of the situation. They are getting help from the crew, who, by the way, we have heard from several passengers on board this particular ship have done an amazing job under some really, really bad circumstances. Hundreds of media members and dozens of satellite trucks that have been stationed there for the last 24 hours or so getting ready for the arrival. But you can see the tugs on the starboard side keeping that boat pushed against because there is no propulsion right now as far as the Triumph is concerned. The nightmare almost over for more than 3,100 passengers and over 1,000 crew members aboard the Triumph. And we continue our team coverage tonight with Local 15's John Zanitas, who is live at the Alabama Cruise Terminal tonight.
And John, you were right there.
And we also met two husbands that are here in Mobile waiting to reunite with their wives who are on board the Triumph just in time for Valentine's Day. Mike Padilla and Tim Morgan drove here from Richmond, Texas. They have heard the worst from their wives who were celebrating what should have been a fun-filled surprise birthday cruise.
And they're not telling them anything. And that was what the comment was this morning.
Well, they say their wives are not mad at the cruise line, just ready to get home, and it looks like it is going to be a nice Valentine's Day for those two couples. Exactly. Local 15's Christian Jennings spoke with several family members from all over the country.
Yeah, she continues our team coverage.
All right, Frank, thanks so much. And, you know, the good news is that the weather has kind of been Chamber of Commerce. It was a little chilly for folks on the deck. Well, there's a shot of the bayway and the causeway. But if we go back to that aerial shot of the ship itself, we can talk about what the weather was like over the ship. There it is. As we saw all those folks coming in on the deck of that ship. Got a little chilly tonight once the sun went down, but for the most part, a pretty pleasant day here in Mobile for those folks. Earlier this week, Carnival's Elation cruise ship stopped to help the stranded Triumph this past Sunday. Two passengers that arrived back in New Orleans Thursday from that cruise talked about what they saw when their boat stopped by to help. They believe the Triumph passengers really didn't know what laid ahead for them.
They seemed in pretty good spirits that day because it was Sunday.
Now, the passengers of the Elation say that they started to think the passengers were going to experience bad living conditions. They also said it is an unbelievable sight to see the huge ship floating dead in the water and listing to one side. All right, let's head back out live to the Alabama Cruise Terminal, and you can see that it looks like the disembarkation process is well ahead of schedule. There is a steady stream of passengers with their luggage heading down the gangway and into the cruise terminal. This wasn't expected to even begin until 10:30, 11, or 12 tonight, and it looks like the process is well ahead of schedule. That is certainly good news for these weary travelers who have been through a lot over the last 5 or 6 days. Well, our Local 15 news team started the day off on Dauphin Island waiting for the Carnival to pop up on the horizon, and as the day wore on, more and more people joined us.
I feel bad for the people of Mobile. I really do.
Let's take another look of what it looks like right now at the cruise terminal. Another aerial view of Mobile, and the big 900-foot-long Carnival Triumph is now successfully and safely docked at the Alabama Cruise Terminal. And folks, as you can see, are briskly getting off this ship. They're not taking any chances. They are going to get on dry land and into those buses as quickly as they can if that is their goal tonight.
Yes, our team coverage continues of the.
Well, plus they were in the southern Gulf and they were complaining about hot temperatures there because there was no air conditioning, and it was hot for them. It was uncomfortable. A lot of them talked about removing their mattresses out to the deck so they could enjoy the breeze at least that was out, and things changed dramatically once they got a little bit further north. And there was a front that came through and made things a little chillier out there.
Yeah,
a lot of them are heading to New Orleans. What's the weather like there? And then on to obviously Galveston and Houston.
Weather looks fine. Lots of sunshine here, 70 there.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kim Thurman.
And I'm Greg Peterson, live on the banks of the Mobile River, where today a lot of action. As we've been reporting all day long, we broke in live at about 2 o'clock. About 1:30, a massive storm came through downtown Mobile, creating all sorts of havoc, knocking out power, shattering windows, breaking tree limbs. And here on the Mobile River, right over here at BA Systems, You're looking at one of the berths there. That is where the Carnival Triumph was being repaired for the last 2 months. As you can see, that berth is empty. Take a look at this dramatic video that we got from an eyewitness today from Signal Ship Repair. This is the Triumph making its way across the river. It broke loose from its moorings and was heading straight for Signal Shipbuilding. As you can see, there is a ship right in its way. That is the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers ship called the Wheeler that had been in dry dock for about 7 or 8 months. It was just getting ready to go back out to sea, but as you can see, the Triumph made a collision with that ship. Now, there's another part of this story, unfortunately, to report. 3 berths down at BAE Systems during this tremendous windstorms, gusts of upwards of 70 miles an hour reported at the battleship today. There were 2 men in a guard shack. One of those men has not been found yet. One was recovered, one has not been found. As you can see, the sheriff's flotilla is still out looking in that berth for that man. He's a 40-year-old man. We'll have more on that in just a few minutes. One man was recovered from the water and is okay. Let's bring in Darwin Singleton now. And Darwin, there were a lot of witnesses. It was kind of a slow-motion catastrophe. Where the Triumph is right now, well, it is currently being moved by those tugboats up to the cruise terminal. That is where it is being moored right as we speak. So we'll have pictures of that in just a bit. Chief Meteorologist Derek Beasley says this really was a freak storm that happened this afternoon here in Mobile. We'll hear from him in just a bit as well. As we mentioned, another part of this story, perhaps a tragic part of this story, 2 men went into the water during this storm from BAE Systems, employees there, and one of them is still missing. The Coast Guard, Mobile Police Department, and the Sheriff's Flotilla all in a search and rescue effort right now. Let's go to Christian Jennings, who is at... Christian, there is a live look right now of the Coast Guard flotilla and the Sheriff's Flotilla, and they are using those lateral sonars that you talked about. Those sonars purchased by the Sheriff's Department following the Lamb Lung incident over on Dauphin Island, which helped recover, unfortunately, some of those children that were thrown off the bridge so many years ago. But that is the effort that is going on right now. They're trying to find a body under the water at BAE Systems. Now, those employees, well known at BAE Systems. Let's go now to Local 15's John Zanitas, who talked to a man who knew those men who went into the water very well. John?
Craig?
All right, John, we talked about that tremendous storm that rolled through Mobile about 1:30 this afternoon. Derek Beasley said winds as high as 70 miles an hour were recorded at the battleship, which is literally just across Pinto Island here. We talked to some eyewitnesses who were in the Riverview Tower right in downtown Mobile who said the wind was so strong that they thought the windows were actually going to break in. The wind was so strong that the light fixtures in their building were rocking back and forth. So as you can imagine, it was enough to break the moorings of the Triumph and get it setting sail and also knocking down that guard shack over at BAE Systems. Let's go to Derek Rose now, who also talked with some folks who rode out this storm and saw what happened here on the Mobile River. Derek Rose, thank you very much. Now, as we mentioned, the Triumph right now is being moored at the state terminal, at the cruise terminal, just north of where we are right now on the museum side. It suffered some damage. It is superficial damage. It is sheet metal that can be repaired. The one story that we continue to follow is what is quickly turning into a tragedy. One employee from BAE Systems is still being searched for right now by the Coast Guard, by the Sheriff's Flotilla, by Mobile Police. We will keep you up to date on the very latest of that as soon as we get it. Kim, let's send it back to you in the studio now. Greg Peterson back live on the western bank of the Mobile River, where earlier today during a tremendous storm, the Carnival Triumph broke free from its moorings from BAE Systems right there, made its way across the river and crashed into another boat. But the real story right now, there is a BAE Systems employee who is missing. The search continues for that missing employee who was in a guard shack with another man. As you can see, the ships are still looking. The Coast Guard is in the water. The Coast Guard is in the air with its helicopter. There's also the Mobile Sheriff's Flotilla is looking for this missing employee. He's a 40-year-old man who hasn't been seen since. One man was plucked from the water, but another is still missing. That is the latest and the most important story we're covering here now, Kim. All right, we are continuing to cover breaking news here along the shore of the Mobile River. As you can see, the Sheriff's Flotilla and the Coast Guard still out on the water at BAE Systems looking for an employee who went into the water during that tremendous storm earlier today. The search and rescue continues, but so far they have not found the man that they are looking for. Now, this was a slow motion catastrophe today. Local 15's Darwin Singleton joins me now, and with that ship rolling across in the wind, it was something that just couldn't be avoided.
Even veteran lawmakers.
The Triumph right now is at the cruise terminal in Mobile, and we're going to have more on that coming up tonight at 10. But the story right now is the continued search and rescue effort by the Coast Guard and the Sheriff's Flotilla for the missing EAE employee. Kim, we're going to send it back to you now in the studio.
All right, Greg, thanks a lot. We're going to stay on top of it.
Local 15's Greg Peterson joins us live this morning from Cooper Riverside Park. Now, Greg, you were here when the explosions first began, and you've been following them throughout the night. So what have you learned since last night?
Well, Pat and Tammy, I can tell you that the story's been ongoing for about 8 hours now. As you mentioned, the first explosion on a barge right over here at the Oil Recovery Company, which is right across from the cruise terminal, if you can imagine where the Triumph is right now. It is right across the Mobile River on the eastern coast of the Mobile River. That is where the first explosion happened. Now, take a look at some of the video. These are subsequent explosions. The first one was huge. It was felt for miles around, and when I say miles, I mean miles. Folks as far away as Bay Minette, Spanish Fort, Daphne felt it. They said the ground rumbled, their houses rumbled. They said some doors were knocked open on the initial barge explosion. These barges are being cleaned out right now. They were already offloaded. This is raw gasoline that is inside these barges, and those are the explosions you see. Most of the raw material was out of those barges when they exploded. There was just some residual product that was inside of there when they exploded. Now, these barges, the first explosion occurred, as we mentioned, a little bit after 8:30 last night. At that point, Mobile Fire and Rescue and some of the water hoses came out here, the boats that have the hoses that pump water on fires. And then they decided that this is not going to be a very safe situation. So what they did was they backed away. Mobile Fire and Rescue said nobody goes in, nobody goes out. We're going to let this thing burn out. What has happened for about the last 8 hours is more explosions. The last one occurring about 2:30 this morning, and that is when the fire basically burned itself out. With me now is Steve Huffman, the information officer with Mobile Fire and Rescue. And Steve, it's been a long night for you all. Most importantly, let's talk about the injured. 3 people injured. They were on that barge. They were cleaning it out, and they are still in critical condition tonight.
To my knowledge, yes. They were taken to the burn center for treatment, and they were critical whenever they left the scene.
Talk about what Mobile Fire Rescue has been doing throughout the night, because as we mentioned, this was a situation like was very similar to what occurred in West Texas, where some of the first responders went in, tried to fight the fire, and subsequently not only were injured but also killed.
Once we went in and got the victims out, we backed everybody up. In fact, we kept backing things up as the explosions kept occurring.
All right, Steve Huffman with the Mobile Fire Rescue. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, it's been a long night for a lot of folks out here, including our team of reporters that was out here when the first explosion happened and then continued to report on it. With me now is Local 15's John Zanitas. You were here last night. You witnessed a couple of those explosions. Talk about what you saw, what you felt last night as these things were continuing to explode.
Well, pretty much, Greg. First, you would just see this silent.
John Zanitas, thank you, John. As we mentioned, 3 people injured on that barge last night. They are in critical condition. They're at USA Medical Center burn unit. We are told that they continue to remain in critical condition, and it's obviously been a very tough night for them. They were the ones who were on board that barge, cleaning it out. Again, this was raw material. It was raw gasoline with no additives. So throughout most of the night at Oil Recovery Company, which is right next to Austell right there, what they usually do is work on the liquid natural gas, and for a long time last night that's what we believed was on board that barge, but it turns out it was raw gasoline that was mainly already evacuated from that barge. It was some residual product. Last night we talked to the fire chief, who said it was indeed gasoline and that it was some of that residual product that wound up exploding. Now, as far as the morning commute is concerned, let's get to that real quickly. There was some concern about how the concussion of these explosions may have affected the Wallace Tunnel, which is literally just about 3 football fields down the river, underneath the river, of course. Well, everything has been checked out, everything okay for the Wallace Tunnel and the Bankhead tonight. Pat and Tammy, it's been a long night, and obviously a lot of work left to be done when the sun comes up here this morning.
Clear. And Local 15's Greg Peterson has been following this since it happened last night. And Greg, for people that are concerned about the morning commute, right now everything is okay.
Yeah, Pat, let's make it very clear. We talked with Mobile Fire and Rescue. They have assessed the situation. As far as the commute is concerned, it will not be a problem as long as people don't stop along the Bayway, along Water Street, or along I-10 as they head into the Wallace Tunnel. The tunnels are fine. There is no problem with the tunnels, no problem with the Bankhead or the Wallace Tunnel, so that is good news. As you can see behind me right now, this is Mobile Fire and Rescue, their fireboat. There's a 4-man crew on board here. They have been standing watch all night long to make sure that those barges do not reignite. Now, they have been out since about 2:30 this morning. This crew just went and assessed the situation just a few minutes ago, and as the light comes up, they're going to find out exactly what kind of damage we're looking at over there on the barges. They say that the barge is pretty much destroyed and that there is not much left of it. They say it's a lot better situation than it was just hours ago when the fire was still going out, but they let it go out. Let's take you back to last night, about 8:30, 8:40, the first explosion. This is at Oil Recovery Company right next to Austell, literally within 100 yards of Austell. A giant explosion that could be felt for miles around. We got tweets, we got Facebook posts from as far away as Saraland, as far away as Bay Minette. People in Spanish Fort, people in Daphne were calling the station saying, what in the world was that? It was a seismic event, there's no doubt about it. Homes were rumbled, there were doors knocked open, there were things knocked off shelves. A lot of folks were talking about their animals were kind of freaking out last night. Then another explosion moments later. The explosions continued till 2:30 this morning. Now, the main thing here is that there were 3 people on board those barges that were cleaning those barges. They were loaded with gasoline at one point, but that gasoline was offloaded already, and what they tell us is that it was some residual product that was on there that ignited and caused those explosions. Now, the public information officer with Mobile Fire and Rescue, Steve Huffman, joins me now. We just got debriefed from some of the guys. What's the latest? I know you've been waiting for sunup to kind of assess the damage and just been waiting and watching. Sun's coming up now. What can you tell us?
The guys on the fireboat went over to make sure that the barges were still secure. We don't want them floating off, obviously. Everything is secure at this point. They did note that there's heavy damage to the barges themselves. Some collateral damage around it, like the grain silos, but didn't look like anything major at this point, primarily the barges.
It was such a volatile situation last night. I know after the first explosion, there was a tug that was trying to put some water on this thing, and then it continued to explode. It didn't take long for you to put out the warning, evacuate, get away. We don't want any more people injured.
Yeah, we didn't want to take any chances of getting any of our people hurt or any civilians hurt as well. And that's the reason why we called for the evacuation, number one. Number two, the decision was not to go in and try to fight this fire because it was obviously unstable, very volatile. No sense in risking anybody's life over a couple of barges.
You know, we can see the building that's behind you right by the barges. That is a grain silo, and we all know that grain dust can be very volatile as well, and I'm sure that was a concern.
Yeah, only one of the silos actually contained any grain. The other ones are empty. So that was good to hear that we didn't have all of them full.
As far as the 3 people that were taken to USA Medical Center to the burn unit there, can you give us an update on their condition?
I don't have any update on them. Typically, once they leave our care to the hospital, we don't get any updates. Just one note, we were talking about the fireboat earlier. They're getting ready to go back over with a thermal imaging camera to check to see if there's any or what type of heat is still left on the barges.
I would imagine there is plenty of heat left on that. The explosions were just tremendous. I know you were out here. It has been a long night and a long morning for a lot of folks from Mobile Fire and Rescue, but as far as the situation now, everything is pretty much back to normal. We're not expecting anything else to happen, and I guess the best thing you can tell people for the commute this morning is just go on your way and don't gawk, right?
Right. We still have an operation to do here, and we don't need people gathering around and getting in the way.
Yeah. All right, Steve Huffman with Mobile Fire and Rescue. Thank you, Steve. We appreciate it. It's been a long night for Steve as well. He has been out here keeping us informed all night long. The situation, as he said, is pretty stable right now. We have a couple of cutters from the U.S. Coast Guard. We talked to them earlier. Their main concern last night was cutting off traffic here on the Mobile River because it was a very volatile situation. Those explosions were absolutely tremendous, could be felt for miles around. With me now, Local 15's John Zanitas, who was here last night as part of our reporting team. John, you were here when several of those explosions happened, and the feeling was probably like nothing you've experienced before.
Never before, Greg. I mean, we were...
The main thing this morning, guys, is the fact that 3 people were injured during these explosions last night. They remain in critical condition this morning at the Burn Center at USA Medical Center. Guys?
All right, Greg, John, we appreciate your efforts out there also.
All right, it's Thursday night, time for another edition to our Faces of the Gulf Coast Honor Roll. You know, they say a watched pot never boils, but for Bay Minette's Mel Hacking, not only do those pots boil, they help provide riches to people all over the world. Here's tonight's edition of Faces of the Gulf Coast. If you've rolled down Highway 59 south of Bay Minette, you probably laid eyes on this. It'll get your attention, especially if you have a hankering for that southern specialty, boiled peanuts. But just who is this Mel, and what makes his peanuts so darn special?
Never would have thought I'd know what to do with a peanut, but somehow I'm able to boil peanuts and people buy them.
Yep, that's Mel, stirring up another week's worth of boiled peanuts. He got into the nut biz about 4 years ago. He'll boil up 400 or 500 pounds a week, and he sells them all. It's a full-time job now that he's taken the show on the road.
How we doing today, Miss Steve?
Hey, how's it going?
Awesome.
Mel peddles his peanuts at area car dealerships and businesses on both sides of the bay. And folks can't wait for the Peanut Man.
How y'all doing?
Oh, I love that guy.
The unsalted, right?
Yeah.
But what you may not know, Mel is actually Reverend Mel, and boiling peanuts is a calling.
I never would have believed something as small as a little peanut would open up so many doors.
And inside those doors, an ever-expanding flock.
I think it's a great thing. He's a very positive person. He also has a great product.
They know that I'm a pastor. I'm able to pray with them. I'm able to share with them. I'm able to listen to them, give words of encouragement.
But that's not the reason Pastor Mel first started perfecting his peanuts.
We come in and build a 12 by 12 house. About $500 is what it takes to buy all the material, and then we do the labor for free.
These pots of peanuts are funding homes and food and clothing for impoverished people in Guatemala. He's partnered with Grace Ministries in Grand Bay and together have built dozens and dozens of these homes, not much by our standards, mansions by theirs.
We always gather around the family and lay hands on them and pray blessing over them, and you just see the heartfelt gratitude as they, on many occasions, will break down in tears and cry.
And they'll never know, thousands of miles away, under a moss-covered cross, in a steamy kitchen behind the New Day Ministries Church in Bay Minette, Alabama, Reverend Mel helped make it possible.
It makes you feel better when you come back home.
When he is back home, his church is modest. His Sunday congregation is as well. But thanks to his peanut ministry, he too has continued to grow.
God knew before I was born I would be a peanut man, even though I never in a million years would have thought that. Don't get caught up with all the media constantly pumping it down you that you always got to get something bigger and better, instead of realizing, you know what, I'm pretty rich like I am right now, you know.
He is too. Reverend Mel was loading up those hot-boiled peanuts at 4 o'clock this morning. He'll be doing it again in about 6 hours. And you can also find Mel's boiled and roasted peanuts at several gas stations on the Eastern Shore. If you can't find them, ask for them. Reverend Mel says he will be more than happy to boil more. And I can tell you, they are delicious, too.
Oh, they are. You brought in a bag yesterday. You know, what's so interesting is that he uses the peanuts to minister to people. I mean, a lot of times it's not your traditional way of going and talking to people who really may need it.
Yeah, he says it is definitely a calling, and he never thought he would even know anything about peanuts until 4 years ago. He got the idea from a friend, and it has really blossomed. And what he has done with that business is really amazing for a lot of people.